Hello again. I am Sifu Bryant Feld from Warrior Wisdom Martial Arts. We are located in Mount Ephraim, New Jersey. We offer classes in Wing Chun Kung Fu every Wednesday from 8:45 p.m. to 9:45 p.m. and every Sunday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. So today what I want to talk about is I think the main thing that distinguishes Wing Chun from other martial arts, and it's not necessarily a binary sort of distinction. I don't feel like Wing Chun is the only martial art that has this perspective. I think it's a common perspective in Chinese martial arts, uh, as well as other martial arts. But for me personally, um, my introduction to viewing martial arts training in this way was when I began studying Wing Chun Kung Fu back in 1995. So prior to Wing Chun, my training was mostly in Aikido. And I had dabbled in a couple of other things as well, but most of my training had been in Aikido. And Aikido is learned primarily through kata and waza, where you have situation A, response 1, situation B, response 2, situation C, response 3, etc., etc., etc. So you learn very specific responses to very specific situations. And you continue to train in that manner until you get into the more advanced material in the art. And then at that point, you start to learn and understand, what are the underlying principles, mechanics, theories that make it such that these responses that you were taught are supposed to work. And that's a paradigm that's true for many martial arts. For me, when I began to learn Wing Chun, what I realized is, maybe there's a different way to look at it. And that different way to look at it was to, from the very beginning of your training, to emphasize attributes and principles. Attributes being, things that you develop within yourself to better express your martial art. For example, relaxation, coordination, balance, timing, sensitivity. These can be considered attributes. Things that you develop within yourself that allow you to better express your art. And then principles are things that are just true about the world, your relationship to the world, or your relationship to your adversary or your training partner. Principles that you utilize, exploit, take advantage of in the application of your art. I'm not going to get too heavy into principles because that will require, a physical demonstration that I'm not going to get into right now. Needless to say, every martial art, whether they emphasize an attributes and principles approach or not, has attributes and principles. I think the distinction is whether or not you're trying to get the students to recognize principle and develop attribute in a very conscious way from the very beginning of the training process, right? Because what you want to do, I think, is make it such that you have a consistent system. For example, the Wing Chun Kung Fu system, right? And yes, it's a martial arts system, but it's also a system that allows a practitioner to develop their own Kung Fu. based on understanding and developing attributes and internalizing and having the ability to apply principle. Like if we were to go to the same art school, we'd all be learning the same artistic principles, but each of us would have a different expression of art, even though we based on the same principles. I think Wing Chun should work in that way. We're all developing the same attributes. We're all utilizing the same principles, but everybody's Wing Chun should be a little bit different. And in addition to that, I think the more maturity you have in the system, the less mechanical your Wing Chun should appear. I personally am of the opinion that you should, as an instructor, you should not really teach your students your Kung Fu. You should, as an instructor, give the student the opportunity to discover their own Kung Fu and give them the methods in order to do that. And then if something happens, where God forbid they might have to actually use their Kung Fu, they're not trying to remember something, they're not trying to pull something out of their pocket, they're just being themselves because the Kung Fu has become a part of them. It's just who they are. So in the event that they have to use their Kung Fu, they're just being themselves. And it comes out naturally and spontaneously, with no need for forced outcomes, no need for premeditated responses. Very naturally and dynamically being able to handle most situations, because the Kung Fu is a part of them, as opposed to being something that they're trying to attach to themselves. So the idea being that by developing attributes and internalizing principles, you are literally changing your nature so that regardless of what happens, it's more likely that you're going to have some form of appropriate response. And for me, that was what converted me to Wing Chun. That is what made me want to study Wing Chun, because for me it was the first art that engendered that perspective. And not to say that there aren't other martial arts that have a similar or same perspective. It's just that for me personally, Wing Chun was the first art that caused me to think in that fashion and change my perspective on martial arts from that point forward. So, with that said, that's my rant for today. I thank you for your time, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.